Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide in paranormal and depth. The journey continues today on April 10th, 2023 at approximately 4:23 p.m. PST. Now, I returned to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use on a day-to-day basis. And the excuse me, and the philosophies of life I talk about are the ones I personally live by. Now, before I get into anything, we'll start off the day right, sort of. And Nightmare, you are in with the gold. Henry, welcome aboard. You've come in with the silver. Today we are going. I'm hoping your guys' day has been good. Mine's been rather productive, for the most part. But I figured we'd start off with a very simple outlook. What is empathy? And if you'll notice, apparently my writing is really poor because the title came up absolutely scrambled. I'll have to figure out how to correct that. But what is empathy? Where did it come from? Joe, how you doing? Glad you could join us. You are in with the bronze today, Joe. Where did it come from? What is it? Where does it come from? And how can you live and thrive with it? Now, let's start with the basics. Many people refer to things as psychic phenomenon or the paranormal. Well, as it was discussed in many cases, once something happens so frequently that it is a way of life, whatever, even if it's really, really weird, the paranormal becomes the normal. In my case, I was born empathic. Okay. As a matter of fact, I was born, most people, simply put, most people are born with 5 basic senses. Okay. Your sight, your taste, your touch, your hearing, your smell. Okay. And then a rudimentary 6th, which everybody chalks up to psychic ability, intuition, gut feeling. Okay, these are just words to try to strive to describe what you're going through. Now, break it down a little more. You've got telepathy, empathy, telepathy, psychometry. Some of these words you may not recognize. You can look them up or ask me. It doesn't mean I can go either way. Precognition. You have there we go. Pull a complete blank. Apparently, memory is not one of them. But of all of these, now people call them psychic phenomenon. I heard it put once. The best way ever put is that we are not, so to speak, psychic so much as sensitive. Now, do not confuse the idea of being sensitive as having a whole lot of caring for people, because some people are very sensitive, but really do not show this. Okay. Big difference between sensitive and being sympathetic, by the way. But where it comes from, essentially, if you think about it, as your cells replicate and as they divide again and again, they are still always in communication with each other. If they weren't, your heart would not beat. Your lungs would not be able to take in air properly. Okay, when we take a look at empathy, that ability to feel inside your own cells expands exponentially to reach outside of your body to the people around you. Okay, now where this can cause a bit of a complication. Hey, Alicia, glad you can make it back. Where are we? Yeah, Alicia, yeah. The fact you haven't been in, I'm glad you're still with us. Okay. JCL, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Where are you? Yeah, unfortunately, reception can be really scrambled. There are days, even with me living right smack in the middle of a city, okay, there are days when my reception gets a little scrambled. Okay, so no harm there at all. So when we look at empathy, it expands exponentially, and people that are born empathic, and many of you are, okay, you undoubtedly are picking up the feelings of other people of what they're going through. One of the obvious issues is you may be sitting there, maybe you think everything's just plain normal, and all of a sudden a total stranger comes out of left field, sits down, and for whatever reason starts telling you their life story. Starts telling you what they're going through. Okay, and it's not a question of whether you care about it. It's a question of they feel that you will be open and be willing to listen. And many, many, many people have this little complication of how do you determine when you're pushing too much. Empaths on the whole do not deal with crowds well, because what we deal with is information overload. If you're picking up everything you're going through, and then you walk by somebody that's really distressed. Have you ever walked into a room where there's recently been a fight and everything looks normal? You walk in and you feel really tense, really disjointed. And after talking to a few people, you find out, well, Jane and John just had one heck of a fight. Hey, Mr. L, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And I missed a little point here. What do we got? We have the gold with a Nightmare with the gold, Henry with the silver, Joe came in with the bronze, and Alicia, who has not been in for a while for a lot of reasons, has come in with honorable mention. Some of you, I'm slowly learning your names offline. And with that in mind, do understand, I'll stick to the names I see here, primarily because they're easier to remember. They're right in front of me. From your standpoint, the things you have to look at that may indicate you're empathic. First of all, you may be feeling great. You go into a room, you're feeling up and about, and all of a sudden your mood just tanks because there is so much negativity going on around you, or there's something that somebody very, very physically nearby has been going through a real rough time, and you automatically pick up on it. I tell you, most empaths have a problem going into a hospital. It gets even worse if you happen to be a medium. Okay, where you can pick up what the dead are going through. Okay, so now this is why I say, instead of referring to it as psychic phenomenon, you may choose to look at the term sensitive or supersensitive or hypersensitive or whatever you want to call it. Okay, the reality is that many people suffer from this sort of thing. You're looking at kids, and people automatically go, oh, he's a very sensitive child. The problem may be far more complicated and far more simplistic at the same time. That being that you're dealing with a child that is literally picking up what everybody around them is feeling. Okay. The other thing this will lead to, and you may have suffered from it yourself, is it may lead to a feeling of isolation from the people around you because you're responding to things that don't add up. Okay, that you don't have a quantifiable way of saying, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm going through. Okay, that's one of the biggest things that we have to really take a look at. Yeah, well, and I can relate to that all too well, Mr. L. That the funny, like Mr. L is just saying, around family, even though I love them, I just tell them I have bad nerves, so I don't need to explain much. I heard it put one day brilliantly where somebody says, don't explain. Okay, just don't worry about it, because your friends don't require an explanation and your enemies don't deserve one. Now, from my standpoint, honestly, I will explain to pretty much anybody, whether they like me or not, if they ask the question, most of the time. Okay, there are some questions that people have asked me, and I've upset some people here because they'll ask me a direct question. I'll go, I'm not answering. I'm just not telling you. You know, and that's because that's a boundary I put in place. Oh, okay. Well, this, in all honesty, Mr. L is just saying, I don't even understand why I feel like this. And that is exactly what we're going to strive to answer today. Okay. What happens is when you are close to somebody, when you are sensitive, and you're physically picking up what other people are going through. Okay. Like, it happened to one person I knew. They were just a child at the time, and they were standing in the auditorium at school, and they were facing the wall just because that's where they were. Somebody behind them on the other end of the room hurt their arm. Okay. Didn't say anything about it, but they banged their bicep. And the child in question suddenly grabs their arm in the same place that the other student hurt it, right? And screamed out in pain. Okay. So, I mean, he just all of a sudden screamed. And everybody's looking, what's wrong? What's wrong? And we looked at the child. I says, that's a full empath. He physically picks up what other people feel. Okay. Yeah, absolutely, Mr. L. The way you're doing that, okay, if you desire to do it, and you got to be careful, because I'll tell you, when I was growing up, I did it the hard way. Okay, I would get my hand close to somebody. I didn't even have to physically touch them. And all of a sudden, their health would start to climb, and my body would take it on. But with my healing rate at the speed it is, I tended to heal real quick. Okay, I've done this in public. I've seen it in public. What you're doing is you're literally on a politely, simply put, on a subquantum level, you're interacting with with the other people's body, and your body's knowledge of how to heal a given illness is literally reminding their body how to heal. Okay, this is the same reason why you can walk into a room. Okay, why an empath can walk into a room and really change the mood of it just like that, depending on how strong you are. And it really boils down to a question of how strong your will is. Okay, this is one of those things that gets just a little out of hand. But you have to be careful where it comes to. You've got to remember, where it comes to healing other people, do not make the mistake of taking on their illness. Okay, I did that. It doesn't work out well. Okay, but the reason it happens is because when we take a look at the neural net, which is what connects everything, okay, sensitives such as yourself, Mr. L, are connected to that net much more securely than the average person. Okay, now this does not make you weird. It doesn't make you, and I know you're aware of this, may make you feel weird, but being able to sense what other people go through does not make anybody better than the next person. Okay, it can certainly make for a confusing time, but what happens is you're literally just picking up more information and processing more information than the average person does. Okay, this is where things can get a little complicated, if you will. So it becomes an issue of where it came from. Every single individual I've ever met, okay, every corporeal that I've ever run into is born empathic. However, what happens, okay, what happens is as kids get older, okay, adults have a tendency of going, oh, what a wonderful imagination. Okay. Yeah, just remember one of the things there, Mr. L, when you're striving to change the atmosphere, okay, absolutely. The real key to it is to draw the atmosphere around you in a much as positive an atmosphere as you can. Stay focused on the good things that are happening. Yes, people get caught up in really stupid maneuvers on occasion. Okay, and I will tell you, striving to convince people, especially those really close to you, can be complicated to say the least. But where it comes in handy, when we're looking at the energy in and around you, in and around people, empathy is literally the ability to physically pick up what other people are going through. And as children, everyone's born with it. This is why some kids are really, really wired, really happy, really hopping all over the place, even when they're first born and in arms. Okay. They're reacting to the energy around the other people they're dealing with. Now, because women are taught to live with their heart on their sleeve, as it were, and men are taught to be a little more logical, quite often when a woman picks up a child, the woman will pick up the child will pick up this sense of peace and automatically start to calm down. Some men can do it as well. Okay. And do not get me wrong, this does not make women better than men in any capacity. It simply means they are more in tune with their own emotions. And yes, guys, when a woman is more in tune with her own emotions, she can get a little bit more reactive, a little bit more sensitive. Okay. And yes, guys do the same thing. But guys are taught if you're starting to feel something, oh, no, you got to make sure you understand what you're going through. No, you don't. I cannot tell you how many men I've had to tell, look, it's okay to break down in tears. It's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength. But with children, what happens is as they're getting older, and it usually happens the first 3 or 4 years, people leave it alone. What a wonderful imagination. Oh, so you've got an imaginary friend. Adults' idea of an imaginary friend is a child's idea of normal life. Okay. And like I said earlier, when things happen so frequently that is what is going on a day-to-day basis, what you call abnormal or paranormal may be an absolutely normal pattern for the child. Okay, but by the time that the kid gets to 5 or 6 years old, adults are suddenly going, oh, that's a wonderful imagination. Now it's time to grow up and start acting like an adult. Okay. And I'm still trying to figure that out because the imagination is the key. Okay. That is how society has evolved. Okay. And we can go into that at a different point. Okay. But with empathy, quite simply put, is likely the most underrated and undervalued of the extended senses. Okay. The ability to tune in to the atmosphere directly of what's going on in the area around you. Now, in some people's cases, like my own, I end up tapping into what the planet itself is going through. Now, Mr. L is just going, usually it's very easy because I totally separate my feelings from the situation in front of me and then boom the knowledge intuitive power goes sky. Yeah, absolutely. I read that really poorly. Okay. Absolutely. If you can separate yourself to a degree and go, this is what has to happen. It's a part of the growth curve. But let's focus on the positive side of, say, growth curve. Okay. War is absolutely horrendous. And this is one of the reasons why I don't turn on the news. Okay. Is there is so much conflict going on that people are buying into the conflict itself. And this particular tendency is something that the other thing that empaths on the whole go through. Yeah, Alicia, glad you came back. And yeah, power, I presume you plugged the phone in. Okay, at this point, I mean. But yes, the world is lacking in a lot of things. This chat room itself, on the whole, I find absolutely fantastic. Okay, and this is the kind of energy I would love to see expand and reach new levels. Now, with that in mind, and I've got to get more used to doing this, but if you like the stream, if you do enjoy what's going on here, do me a favor and give us a thumbs up, and then subscribe to the channel. And then once you've done that, don't forget to hit the alert button to let you know when I come on, because yes, I'm on most days between Friday and Wednesday from 4:30 to 6:30. But I do have a tendency once in a while I'm coming online anyway, depending on what I'm up to. Okay, but we are currently, just to bring you up to speed, let's give it real time here. We'll refresh that and see what the real time comes up at. And right now, real time report, as it were, we are sitting at 481 subscribers. 19 to get to 5, in case your math is off. Okay. Oh, absolutely it will. Where did that go? Yeah, absolutely it will, Joe. One thing that does work to help cope with that is, and I've talked about this before, but it applies really strongly to empaths in particular. Okay, now most of you have heard about this idea about surrounding yourself with a bubble of white light. I don't blame you there, Alicia. Most of you have heard, surround yourself with a bubble of white light, and this will help you cope. And it does. Okay, you can call it your imagination if you'd like. Call it what you will. You can call it a peanut butter sandwich for all I care, for all the difference it actually makes. But here's the thing. In your mind's eye, surround yourself with a bubble of white light. That will protect you from the ambient negative energy that's that you are dealing with, just because you happen to be on the planet dealing with corporeals, or incorporeals for that matter. But here's the addition to it. This is what I found worked for me as an addition to the white light. You take that bubble of white light. Shadow, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And Ozzy, glad to see you here. Okay. You surround that bubble with mirrors facing away from you, much like looking through the backside of a one-way mirror. Those mirrors will reflect back the negative energy that other people are generating. Okay. So if you walk in and somebody's really aggressive and really being annoying, you put that mirrored bubble around you, and all of a sudden that negative energy is not, most of the time, if you set it up properly, in other words, you stay focused on the positive side of it, that negative energy will hit that mirror, transmute to positive energy, and go right back to the person that sent it. Okay, but you'll notice it goes in and comes right back out. Unlike an actual mirror, if it hits at an angle, it'll bounce off. When you're dealing with psychic mirrors, it comes in and goes straight back to the person. Doesn't matter what the angle. Okay, and I'll tell you, when you can see energy, this looks absolutely phenomenal. Okay, that would be the big thing right there. Absolutely, they do. And absolutely, I voices. They absolutely have empathy. Um, I voice is just asking, do demons and jinn have empathy? And the answer is yes. Every single race I've run into, corporeal or incorporeal, if they have a soul, they have empathy. It goes hand in hand. Oh, where are we here? Yeah, the neat part about it, and this is just a thought here, Alicia, if you're dealing with empathy itself, something else that we are capable of doing. Okay, now you've heard the term tree hugger. Okay, most people use this as a derogatory concept. Okay, or many people. I shouldn't say most. Many people see it as a derogatory state. Okay, but much like I've told you before about taking your hands and just putting them a quarter inch apart, quarter inch hand to an inch apart, okay, or a quarter inch to a half inch, you figure out the distance. Take your hands, take one hand as you're walking by a tree. All you do is reach out and put your hand on it. They do caution you, watch for sap. Okay, I don't know about you, but I don't like the sticky feeling. But by simply making connection with the tree, you can pass on, or more to the point, you can exchange that positive life energy between you and the tree. Okay, this applies to everything, but I do caution you. Okay, some people take this to extremes. Okay, I had a raccoon show up on my doorstep one day, and it stood there and raised its hands much like it wanted to be picked up. I took one look at it and went, I'd love to, but I'm just not that dense. Okay, wild animals, even if you're empathic, are still wild animals. But the thing you gotta remember is much like you can adjust the energy and the atmosphere in the area around you regarding day and regarding people, you can do the same thing for other races. Okay, one of the things I do find with strong empaths is that people tend to take a look at things and go, I just desire the world to be a better place, to feel better. Okay, and this is what empaths tend to push for. Okay. Not exactly. Shake the hand of them, yes. Okay. Speaking of which, when I come out with the when Race of the Worlds, the second printing comes out, there are a number of the races that we've been referring to as one thing. I've still got that particular name there, but I've actually added the actual names of many of the actual races, or what they call them, or what they call themselves is more to the point. But you got to remember, a true werewolf, okay, which, by the way, humans do not, contrary to popular belief, do not suddenly physically transform into a big furry animal with sharp teeth and sharp claws. This is the stuff of Hollywood. Although humans do go absolutely bonkers under a full moon sometimes. I actually had I actually had a run-in with my own family the other day, and I told my younger brother, I says, "Look, you guys have never been able to understand how I see the world, because they're both caught in the two that are remaining are caught very much in the material world and what it means." The thing we have to remember here is that when we're dealing with empathic resonance, what you're talking about is, for lack of a better word, hearing other people's emotions or feeling what they are physically going through. Okay, I'm hoping this is bringing some clarity to the way into what you guys are going through. Many of you may have friends and or family that are behaving in really weird fashion, but you'll find if you take a look at it, they get really wired or really stressed out based on the number of people around them. Okay, but you've got to be careful not to let a young empath put this issue of oversensitivity. And it's not a bad thing to be empathic, don't get me wrong. But it is so easy to avoid going to a crowd because of the fact that you're picking up too much. I do it myself, of course. In my case, let's face it, I'm 59. I've already done my time of going through a lot of what people go through. Okay, but this is why what you have to remember where it comes to picking up what other people go through. The difficult part is identifying whether it happens to be your emotion. If you're feeling fine and everything's going great and there's been no complications around you, so there's no reason for it, and your emotions all of a sudden tank, okay, and you all of a sudden get edgy, look around the room you're in. See what changed. See if somebody new came into the room. Because the odds are what you've done is picked up on somebody else's situation. Okay, now here's the neat thing. Okay, once you eliminate it, once you know where that is coming from, you can actually override it. Ever notice I talk with my hands a lot? Don't know entirely why. Certainly not an empathic thing. But at least it's better than playing around with knives. Now, that's not a knife, that's a letter opener. Okay, but I have a tendency of fidgeting a whole pile. This may be why I've got so many things on the go at the same time. Okay, and I do believe I saw Shadow wander in here. I should get on this a little bit more frequently. But, Shadow, I know I saw you come in. So, where are we? There's Shadow, right there. So we take that and we pop. This is Shadow's room. Shadow's YouTube channel. Okay, and I certainly encourage you to swing by his channel, take a look at it. If you agree with what he's saying, or if you enjoy the way he's saying it, absolutely subscribe to the channel, and do share it with other people. I need this out of the way. Yeah. Isn't that just a pain in the neck, Alicia? Okay, when I had to figure it out, I grew up this way, right? In a small community, okay, that was heavy into the religious side of things, heavy into rock and roll. I'm country, okay, and as Barbara Mandrell used to put it, as she put it in her song, I was country when country wasn't cool, and I still can't sing a lick. Okay. Tracy B, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Yeah, well, that's the funny part. The one thing you'll find with any empath, with just about any empath, okay, is you're broadcasting a very definitive frequency, and it's kind of like turning a flashlight on in an otherwise really dark and annoying world. Okay, well, picture, if you will, sitting in a dark auditorium. Everybody go into the auditorium, you put your hands out at arm's length, and then turn all the way around to make sure you can't touch anybody. Sit down on the floor and leave all the lights out. Okay, you sit there for 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever, and then somebody comes along and flicks a small flashlight, or as the old saying went, flicks a bic. That light will draw everybody to them. Okay, and the reason for that is because corporeals live on light. And I don't mean they eat the stuff. Okay, but we feel more comfortable when we can see what's going on. So when you're an empath, it's kind of like having that constant flashlight over your head, or that constant spotlight. Okay, and then pity help you if you have a mouth like I've got. Somebody will say something, your mouth goes into gear, and your brain catches up later. Yeah, Alicia's, boy, can I relate to this. Alicia's just going, hi, I was the shyest girl, and my school was known for crying when I got overwhelmed. And I was known for crying when I got overwhelmed. No one can understand me but the trees, nature, Nature has always been my friend. I didn't cry a lot. Okay, but I absolutely hid from the world. I remember my parents used to tell me that, like, they used to remind me that they'd get phone calls from the school because I refused to leave the classroom. I'd be in the classroom, everybody'd be outside playing, and I'd refuse to go. Okay, because I couldn't cope with kids then either. Okay, now my reason for crying was personal. It had nothing to do with, it's not manly to cry. This has got to be one of the most bizarre ideas. Okay, I was just glancing at what Ozzy put here. Okay, the reason I don't personally, I will get to that question in just half a second, Trace. I refuse to cry because my acid level in my system is so high that when I cry, your heart already hurts. Okay, but when I start to cry, I end up with burn marks down my face. Now my eyes my heart already hurts. Why put myself through that? Now, in answer to your question there, Tracy, Ozzy, from your standpoint, I'm looking here. I really, even when I was teaching the Bible, I could never quote passages and tell you where to find things. Okay, so unfortunately, I'm not the one that's going to be able to help you there. But, Tracy, Tracy's asked, what do you know about narcolepsy and catalepsy? Narcolepsy is basically the body just all of a sudden says, I'm done, I'm going to sleep. I'm going to ignore the world. Okay, and you just drop asleep. This is a problem. I'm presuming if you're dealing with it, you don't drive a whole lot. Okay, narcolepsy in that respect is very similar to epilepsy. Okay, but where the combining of narcolepsy and catalepsy comes in is narcolepsy, you fall asleep, right? And it's just your subconscious goes, I'm done, I'm going to sleep. There is no functional functional trigger that anybody in the scientific world I know of has ever really come across. Okay, I tend to chalk it up myself to an issue of empathic overload. But where the catalepsy amplifies the problem is once you pass out, your subconscious goes, we're not going back. I don't care what the rest of the world does. So the body's going to be on its own. And if it dies, well, then I don't have to go back. I'm good. This is a subconscious drive where the self-induced catalepsy comes in. Okay, that is one of the biggest things that I look at there. Now, the thing is that narcolepsy is a question of, is something that can be overridden. You yourself, as an individual, if you've got medication that is helping you with it, absolutely, for pity's sakes, keep using it. You may well be feeling better, but the odds are you're feeling better because the medication is helping. Okay, and this is where the biggest problem comes in. In too many cases, okay, we end up with a situation where you're going along and all of a sudden you fall asleep. I swear sometimes I wonder, because I'll sit down on the couch and I'll sit down, lean my head back, and all of a sudden I'm gone like a light, which is probably a good thing in some cases. And then other days I've got so much energy running through my system that it's just absolutely impossible, or almost impossible, to shut down. Hey Dogface, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And yeah, you're just getting up, I take it. Unless I forget. I think you're down in Australia somewhere, are you not? But no, catalepsy is an extreme method and it's built in the subconscious. It is not something that it can be just relegated to a physical ailment. And do not get me wrong, scientists are doing a wonderful job in some ways of sorting things out. But people complain so often when they don't get it quite right that many scientists are now getting to the point where they're rather reticent about opening the door and saying this is where you're dealing with it. See, I'm lucky. Well, I'm lucky. I don't go hunting for mushrooms, because I go out in the bush hunting for mushrooms. Somebody else better be coming looking for me, because the odds are I'm not coming home. Not because I don't desire to, but because I got no idea where home is. Okay, but the nice part about everything out there, all of the ailments that mankind is dealing with. Okay, and by the way, empathy is not, contrary to some people's unfortunate experiences, it is not actually a curse, as it were. Okay, it can absolutely be overwhelming. I usually get my coffee within the first 10 minutes of being up. But no, the nice little part about it is when we're looking at empathy, it's also the empaths that can really reach out. You'll find a lot of empaths end up working in the medical or in the counseling fields. Okay. And bear in mind, when I'm talking medical and or counseling, this refers to animals as well. Yeah. Anytime you start feeling overwhelmed, Alicia, and I've mentioned this before, but you haven't been here for a while, so this is quite literally just an upgrade for you. Whenever you're starting to feel overwhelmed, doesn't matter where you are, because you can do this without it standing out and looking like you're doing something weird. Okay. Take either hand, your right or left, it doesn't matter which. Okay, place it palm down on something that normally sits on the ground. A heavy chair, a heavy table, a chunk of the wall. Okay, doesn't matter. Something that normally sits on the ground. Okay, you put your hand on it and then you visualize the excess energy coming out of the palm of your hand, much like water out of a faucet. Okay, you'll feel the energy drain off and your nerves in all likelihood will start to settle. Okay, this is one of those tools I learned a long time ago about. Quite frankly, I learned it because of necessity. Okay, that should help you to cope with the overload. Now, do understand something very important here. if you buy into the negative side of it, you can absolutely create havoc for yourself. But knowing how people feel, understanding what they're going through, is what makes empaths so much more effective. Just a thought, Ozzy, and I am not the one to look on the internet for this. But if you go to a digital version, if you go to a digital version of the Bible, I believe the passage you're looking for is the parable that Christ told about the Good Samaritan. Okay, that may be where you look to find out what you're aiming for. And again, you can. That's the nice thing about the internet. Like, I don't trust the thing. Okay, for a lot of reasons, primarily because I keep scrambling it. But when you're dealing with that whole setup, every single person that is empathic deals with this issue of going overload. Of picking up what so many people pick up. Okay, and the one thing that we do have to look at when you're looking at empathy and the negative side of it, which boils down to picking up on the negative energy other people are broadcasting. Okay. This is one of those things that that virtually every person deals with. The thing is, most people refuse to learn to refer to it as being psychic or as being empathic. And it gets really bad. One of the things that drove me out of the church was because of the amount of hypocrisy and the amount of negative information that was being broadcast. When you sit there and somebody says, God created everything, but if you're psychic, you're evil because God won't create evil. Which begs the question, if you think about it, just positing this, if God created everything, didn't create everything evil, and yet empathy and psychic phenomenon are here, because let's face it, the church acknowledges them. If they're here and God didn't create them, but they're here, who created, how did we come about? Okay, now again, this comes back to an awful lot of misinformation being posited. Okay, one thing you have to remember with empathy, the ability to feel what other people are going through does not mean you have the ability to comprehend it or to relate to it. It means you simply pick it up. You simply feel it. Okay. Now, when you think about it, a baby when they're born will recognize, they will be able to feel hot and cold. They may not be able to quantify it, even in their own mind, never mind the verbal side of it. Okay. But have you ever noticed that if you're really stressed out, even a simple stranger, somebody you really don't know, giving you a hug can help you feel just a little bit more relaxed? Assuming you're picking up on assuming you haven't let the negative energy get to you. Okay. Because I know when my kids were growing up, they're both empathic. And I always insisted that when we had company arrive, they come out and say hello, and they come out when the company was leaving. But never once would I ever force them to give somebody a hug. That is just not the way I operate. Doesn't make it right, wrong, or indifferent, just me. But, empathy itself, and yes, I know full well I'm repeating myself a lot here. And for pity's sakes, people, if you've got a question, absolutely, if you're just joining us or if you haven't been here for a while, absolutely, if you've got a question, post it in the chat room, okay? And, post it in the chat room, but do so in all caps. This is not called yelling. This is called waving your hand. so that I know you're looking for it. Okay. If you're listening to this and we're not actually on air, below this video, you'll find a whole pile of ways of contacting me. If you've got a question, be absolutely certain to drop me a line at any one of them, and I will do my best to respond. Yes, it does get a little complicated on occasion. Okay. I find I'm pulled in way too many directions at once. Okay. Now, one of the other things that we have to realize is that empathy is an extremely powerful ability. It can be used to really generate positive energy to modify the atmosphere in a place, in an area you're in. Okay. It can absolutely be used for that purpose. The sad part, I do hate the hiccups. The sad part of it is empathy can also be used to agitate a crowd. And no, I'm not about to go about trying to educate people on how you can do that. You guys want to do something that negative, you're more than welcome to it. The one thing I will caution you on, though, if you're generating negative energy, okay, even if you're doing so accidentally, karmic law will kick your tail feathers, okay, and every other part of your body. Because karmic law goes energy out, energy in. Meaning, if you're broadcasting negative energy, you are broadcasting out something that's going to come back to you. Okay. And I don't know about you, but this usually makes me edgy, so I just don't do that anymore if I can avoid it. Okay. It's one of those neat little things that you have to take a look at and really decide whether or not you're going to focus on the positive and draw that kind of energy to you, or buy into the negative rhetoric that's being broadcast all over the place. Okay, we have the capacity to change this world, to get people really focusing on the positive side of things. Okay, but empathy itself is a very natural thing, natural gift. Now, I love the people that tell me, okay, and I'm probably going to get flack for this. I love the people that tell me, oh yeah, I'm fully empathic and I just shut it off. I sit here going, how? I've been doing this for 59 years. Okay, give me another couple of weeks, I'll be doing it for 60. But I sit here going, how? I've got two eyes, like two physical eyes. And I can't just decide, oh, I'm not going to see anything out of my eyes anymore. Okay, I can't just decide, oh, I'm not going to hear what's coming in through my ears. They just work. Empathy works the same way. What you can do is focus past it. Okay, shut it off. I wouldn't hold my breath on it personally, but that's just my outlook. One of the neat things about it is you can actually adjust your own feeling. Like one of the things I used to do, I used to have a friend. He unfortunately died while I was having a stroke. My friend happened to be a croton. No, not an alien, he was a plant. Okay, but he was brilliant. I'd sit down, I'd come in the morning, and he's like, I'd pour a cup of coffee for myself. I'd go and sit down on the couch, and all I get is this, where's my coffee? I'm like, what do you mean, where's your coffee? I want coffee. Okay, give me a minute. I go get him cold coffee and I pour it into his pot. But I'd have some fantastic conversations with him. And yeah, sad to say, I related to him better than I did to most people. Okay, but where it comes to empathy, if you focus on the positive vibrations that are out there, because even in the middle of a mess, some people are still giving off positive vibration. They're still giving off positive feelings. It was amazing a few years back. One of the apartment block across the parking lot from us went up in flames, and the amount of support that came off the people coming out of the building, towards each other, and the ones coming from other buildings towards the people that were losing things. The amount of support was amazing. Okay. Even back in 203, when we had the clam bake here, we only had about 100,000 people in the city at the time. Okay, we've grown since then. But when the fire started, okay, we ended up evacuating a third of the city. Okay, moving them to safe houses. Now, I will tell you, in that kind of turmoil, there is still positive energy that people are feeling. Okay, some of you will refer to it as hope. Some of you will refer to it as faith. Doesn't make any difference what name you put it on. Okay. What do we got here? Joe, I just missed that. And again, guys, when you're putting a question in, please do me a favor and put it in all caps. Okay, just about missed this one, Joe. Joe's asking what's more empathic, cats or dogs? In all fairness, I'd be inclined to say cats are a little bit more adept at it. They're both psychic. They both sense things beyond the human and beyond human can. But cats are drawn more often. More cats are drawn to people based on their emotions than what dogs are. But don't kid yourself. If you're feeling ill, okay, a dog close to you will come to your attention. Like will come to your aid as quick as possible. Yeah, Alicia's just going, I've learned to embrace being a super empath over time as a gift instead of a burden. Like I used to. It does make a trip to Walmart on a busy day very hard, even with shielding and crystals to help. And that brings to mind a very important little factor. Did I have it up? I do. I found something. I told you guys I was looking for this. Okay. This little book here. Now, this is a plug for somebody that, frankly, I have no idea who this person is. I don't even know if they're still alive. But this is the book that I personally look to where it comes to different crystals. Now, where it comes to trying to grounding yourself, there are three crystals that I found work really well. Okay. I gave up going to Walmart years ago, but that had nothing to do with empathy. That had to do with something else. The three crystals I know for an absolute certainty are beneficial in helping you ground and protect yourself. Okay. Are hematite. Okay, hematite is a great one. I think Apache tears, and that's why I want to take a look at this. I am not the crystal, I'm not one that's done a whole lot in the way of crystal work. Where is... Yeah, we're just going to ignore that. I'm actually looking to see if I can find Apache tears in here. And probably not going to real quick. This book is absolutely... There we go. Sorry. I just want to find that agate, which is close. At least I'm going the right direction. Bear with me and I will finish that thought. Nope. Sure, the one that I want, it's got to have a different name. But anyway, hematite is fabulous for helping ground. Okay. If you're really connected to the off-world environment, you'll also find moldavite works very well for the same purpose. Okay. Those two, anyway. I think Apache Tears is the third one that I've heard about. Some of you guys are undoubtedly more versed in crystals than I am. But anything that you can use to help you ground, the better off you are. Okay. Where are we here? Yeah. What do we got? Yeah, the one that is one in this whole thing of grocery pickup and grocery delivery is one of the very definitive clear-cut bonuses that came out of the 2 years of lockdown. Okay. It absolutely worked like a charm in certain ways. I don't have to go to the grocery store, to the big grocery stores anymore. Works out conveniently. But where it comes to grounding, where it comes to crystals, if you work with crystals, hematite and moldavite are both very good at helping you ground. The one crystal I will caution you against, where it comes to striving to ground and protect yourself, well, two. Chevron amethyst is an amplifier for psychic phenomenon, as is clear quartz crystal. So you like the chevron amethyst will help you open the third eye, which if you're striving to protect yourself and cut down on the energy flow, this isn't necessarily a good option. Okay. But anytime you've got something, okay. Yeah, and the neat part, I actually, where it comes to empathy, when you combine empathy with the ability to transfer hyperactive healing, as in to remind the other person's body how to heal. Okay. Years ago, before cells became a normal thing, they were just coming on the market. And I was down at the skateboard park, and a kid there got hurt to the point that he had blood coming out of his leg pretty badly. Okay. Now there were a lot of kids there, and they had all pitched together and were trying to find somebody with a cell, somebody to call for help. Okay. So what ended up happening was I come over and I knelt down beside the kid and I said, let me take a look at this. I said, I'm not gonna touch it. I'm not a doctor, but I do work with things a little differently. And I held my hand over top of the kid. And the first thing I did was calmed him down. Second thing that happened was the blood come to a stop. The blood flow did. Okay. From there, I started making way too many, I started making way too many connections with people. Okay. It was funny because the entire group of troubled kids turned around. They literally started calling me the grandfather. And rest assured, I wasn't that many kids' grandfathers. As a matter of fact, as far as I'm aware, I don't have any grandkids. What do we got? Yeah, and I'll just make one minor correction there or adjustment there, Alicia. It's not that people cannot comprehend what empaths go through. It's that people are taught to refuse to comprehend it. Okay, and that's where the problem comes in, because they take a look and people are taught if something is different than you, it's something to be feared. It's a really weird philosophy in life, but I see it all the time. Okay, corporeals tend to look at life this way: fear what you don't understand. What you fear, strive to control. What you cannot control, strive to destroy. And what you cannot destroy, fear. Okay. Now, I like the other side of it. Okay. Question what you don't understand. When you don't understand something, ask questions. If you don't get an answer that adds up, ask more questions. Some things you're going to have to just realize you're not going to comprehend yet. But then, if I were to try, I was talking to somebody, I was talking to a young lass on one of the chat ways anyway, a few years back, about the oscillodensification and tritransformational equipolarity. Now, I'm not educated in Terran science. She was. Okay. She had her master's in rocketry and quantum physics and astrophysics. And it still took me 2 hours to help her understand what I was looking at. And then I probably got asked how much education I actually had. Which, by the way, is not a whole lot. Okay. There is no question empaths see the world in a different light. Okay. And I'm going to put this to you in a really bizarre correlation. Okay. Autistic kids also see the world in a different light. Autistic kids and adults see the world in a different fashion. Okay. And most people just don't comprehend how to look at this different way of looking at things. Okay. But these are talents that can be worked with. Empathy can be honed to the point of being extremely beneficial. Okay. The trick is that you yourself, first of all, focus on finding a balance point for you. Okay. You're not going to see the world the same way other empaths do necessarily either. Because it's one of those things that is very much a personal experience. It's one of these things that changes the way people are looking at the world. And, what it is there's so much more to the world. My dad was colorblind. Okay. Well, they called it colorblind. I called it color enhanced. He would look at one color of blue and he would see 3 different colors. Okay. Now they called him colorblind because he did not see the world the same way. Okay. Myself, there's all sorts of issues. But when we're looking at empathy, okay, empathy is the ability to physically feel what other people are going through. And rest assured, this means most people that are empathic do not have a lot of fun going to the hospital. Absolutely, she is. The funny part about it is, Alicia's just saying Earth is in desperate need of empathy. Okay. Earth herself, most people call her Earth. Many of the pagans refer to her as Gaia. She told me her actual name is Itza. Okay. So I talk to her on a regular basis. It's her and her children that bring me the news that most people wait for the newscaster to give. And it always gets scrambled. Almost always. Where are we? Okay. Oh, well, that would explain a lot of the issue. Ozzy just come back and he goes, so it's in Enoch, not canonical, where fallen angels ask Enoch to intercede for them with God for the bad things they had done. So they knew they had done wrong. Therefore, they have empathy and emotions. Absolutely. Joan, the thing that, and this is going to sound really bad, like Joe's just asked, what causes a person to speak autistic when they are not autistic? Okay. And sad to say, in my opinion, and rest assured, I'm going to get flack for this. Many people that are clearly not autistic will call themselves autistic because, sad to say, for people that don't suffer from it and don't understand it, calling yourself autistic is a great excuse to do things other ways. And yes, I said it. I said it's a great excuse if you're not legitimately autistic. Okay. Now, autistic people, there's nothing wrong with them. They think a little differently. That's all. But I will tell that's all. That's kind of an understatement. But it does make comprehending this world a whole lot more complicated. Okay. But asking what causes a person to speak autistic when they are not autistic is very much like somebody going, I went to war and I'm wearing a uniform, so you got to treat me better because I did a lot. When the person never set foot on foreign soil. Okay. That's one of the biggest problems that I look at. But yeah, when somebody starts claiming without being either tested and confirmed by somebody else. Okay, there are a lot of things that I've been called over the years. However, I also went to a trained psychiatrist on multiple occasions to make certain that my mind was working properly. Every one of them has turned around and said, no, your mind is working great. Temper doesn't need any work, needs a little bit of toning down. But the reality is people claiming to be something they're not. And it's gotten worse. It has become another pandemic, in my opinion, where people are now going, I don't identify as this. I heard of one tale where somebody identified as being blind. Now, they could see perfectly until they poured bleach in their eyes. Okay. Now, this is taking things to a very sad extreme if you think about it. Yeah. Alicia's just going, I have a few crystals and stones I use on an as-needed basis, but researching which would help best and for what helps preventing. So this info, not a problem. Yeah, just making it, like I said, this is the book I've held around for years. Stumbled across it probably 30 years ago now, I think. Nope, 25. Stumbled across it. A gentleman I worked with crystals extensively. And he put this one, Love is in the Earth. Okay. He put this. There is another version, there is another copy of this that actually has pictures of the stones as well. Then my copy does not. Okay. But this one is a great reference manual. Okay. I can only hope that this particular little reference manual I've been working with, becomes something even a quarter that useful. Okay. Which is why I'm still working on the thing, by the way. That, I got way too much information and will just simply go away if I drop dead. Yeah, in all fairness, Alicia, before the lockdown came, it was neat. Here I am empathic. People go, we got to go out. We got to go out and do this. I'm like, I had to come up with reasons why I didn't have to go with them. Okay, so I could stay home. And then along came the lockdown. And all of a sudden I'm going, the government is now saying I have to stay home. I have to stay away from people. And it is advisable to drink warm liquids. I'm thinking, I don't desire to go out. I get overwhelmed being around too many people unless I'm working. And I've got a 30-cup urn at home. I'm good. It really didn't cause me too much trouble. Yeah, for me, like I said, Mr. L, for me, lockdown kind of created an interesting environment. I no longer had to leave, and I didn't even have to come up with a reason for it. Oh, I'm sorry, the government said I'm not allowed to, which I didn't mind. Now, do understand, this does not mean it was all in all a fabulous thing. Okay, empaths, it kind of gave a break for some empaths. Okay, but here's the kicker to empathy. Being away from people doesn't necessarily make the empathy pan off or fade off. Okay. I have run into people that have tried to shut it down. Okay, and it doesn't work well. Because what happens, it's like damming up a river. and not stopping the river flow. Sooner or later, that dam is going to break, and then you're going to have to deal with the havoc that comes with it. Okay, so again, when you're feeling overwhelmed, and this is extremely important for most of you, okay, just take a moment, put your hand on a wall, put your hand on a heavy chair, something that is not normally picked up. One of the big things I recommend people don't pick up is don't drain your anxiety into a baseball bat. Okay, because the baseball bat will hold the negative energy and will release it into whoever picks it up. Now, in case you hadn't pieced two and two together, this becomes a problem. Okay, but you take your hand, whichever one, it doesn't matter which. Put your hand on something that normally sits on the ground. Okay, be it a wall, a table, a heavy chair. Okay, anything that normally sits there that is not easy to pick up. Then you visualize the excess energy coming out of your hand, much like water coming out of a faucet. Now, when you get comfortable enough with that, you'll be able to drain that energy just by standing. Okay, you won't rely on your hands to do it, but the hands are the easy way of explaining it, if you will. Okay, but here's where things can change today. You've got tools in your hands now by which you can positively affect the moods and the emotions that are running around you. Okay, when you feel a negative emotion hit you, make sure it's not yours. Okay, and then focus on shifting that energy wavelength. And it's just it's not a complicated concept. Okay, you take that negative and you go, no, I'm sending that back out with love. Okay, and you flip the energy around, you send it back out, you will have an impact on the world around you. Okay, that's the funny part there, Alicia. The real big thing we have to remember, before the internet came out, people used to blame the major media moguls, okay, for all the negative information being broadcast. And I used to do exactly the same thing. I looked at them and went, I cannot see why these people would say, this is the news the people want. I asked an editor one day, I said, why, pray tell, do you post this much negative? Oh, that's what the people want. And I'm thinking, that can't be the answer. Okay, I should have been thinking, please don't let that be the answer. Okay, but what I found out when the internet came about, when we start looking at social media, okay, it's the common people that are broadcasting the negative stuff that's going on. Okay, and there is so much deception and so much false information being passed on that, you start questioning everything. But what I quit questioning was whether or not the major media were the problem. And frankly, they're not. Okay, we as individuals are causing the problem. Okay, you may not like the concept. Okay, and I'd apologize, but then you might misconstrue that as me thinking I'm sorry. The reality is that you may not like the idea that maybe you're part of the problem broadcasting negative, but let me ask you this. Do you ever, when you look at any of the social media or any of the news, do you ever turn and read through an entire thing on who shot who ripped who off, whatever, and just skim over who got married? Do you do you take in more information than is negative or relay more information than is negative? Okay. And I mean, the same thing applies to word of mouth. Okay. Yeah, I'm just looking at this. Alicia's just gone. From my experience, people think think. Now that was interesting. Well, I'm just going to read the way that you wrote it. People think so, and so thing, word, or oh, that should have been something. Think something, or word, or different. They assume you're in drugs. Okay. That's the neat little catch. There's a lot of terms I use that are not mainstream. As a matter of fact, as I found out with my writing, I still work a lot in Old English. But everybody thinks in their own fashion. The reason language is important is so that we have a common ground to work with. We had this conversation just the other day on this stream that some people have a different way of looking at things, and I've had to go, no, this is the way. These are the rules that we're working with, because unfortunately, when you see the world in a different light, and especially when you vocalize the fact that you see it in a different light, okay, this can create fear, panic, anxiety. It opens that door. But you are right, Alicia. Being an empath, you learn not to judge. Okay, you do your best. Well, that is terribly unfortunate, Mr. L. The thing is, everybody in a good mood, and you're going to love this one, guys. Okay, everybody in a good mood is on a drug. Okay, I think if I remember the name of the drug properly, and those of you in the medical society will know this one better than I will. Okay, but everybody in a good mood, especially if you're in a really upbeat mood, you're on a drug called serotonin. Okay, this is a natural drug your body generates. But if you want to call it being on drug, have a happy. Literally, have a happy. Okay, every single person on the planet uses drugs, and yet most of you don't realize it. Okay, you use serotonin to feel happy, you use melatonin to help you sleep, but these are generated inside your body. Okay, and that's the thing you have to remind yourself of, is that we are talking about an interesting situation where if you don't phrase something in exactly the right fashion, okay, somebody's going to accuse you of being like, I got told the other day, I got blatantly accused of being rude and uncivilized because I warned somebody, don't go down this road. Okay, they pushed down the road, and I told, because I said, look, you keep pushing that concept, I'm going to hang up on you. Right. Now, being an empath, and if you're empathic, you can relate to this all too well. Somebody goes, I want you to hear my side. And it goes completely against everything, and it comes across like somebody kicking you in the stomach. And it's like, I don't want to go through that, so I'm not talking about it. This is why I don't talk about politics. Okay. This is part of why I don't worry about the different religions. To me, religion, whether it's mainstream, pagan, witchcraft, something that you made up of your own, doesn't matter. Okay, what you call something, whether you believe in God, whether you believe in source, whether you believe in a higher power, it doesn't matter to me. Okay, and that said, I just look at it going, call it what you will. But as an empath, you've got to remember that you're picking up things that most people are taught to ignore. Okay, and that teaching, usually by the time a kid is 6 or 7 years old, they have learned to discount their instincts. They've learned to discount the feelings that they're having. Okay, and it becomes very complicated as you get older. Okay, primarily because the less you remember of it, the more complicated your life can be as you strive to cope with things that are happening, whether you believe in them or not. It's kind of like somebody saying, oh, I don't believe in gravity, and then wondering why they hurt when they fell down the stairs. Okay, they didn't trip, They stumble, but not far enough they should have fallen. Problem is, gravity doesn't care whether you believe in it. Empathy does not care if you agree with empathy. Okay, your eyes don't care whether you believe what you're seeing. They're going to show you what's there. You know, it's funny when you take a look at this issue of language. When I was growing up, I was told never put anything in your mouth that you can't pronounce. Well, that was a bit of a problem for me. Being diagnosed mentally retarded, I had a vocabulary that was just insane. And what I didn't understand, I could work out anyway. And yeah, you take that, you add to that the fact I have a metabolism that's just stupid, and all of a sudden you've got a problem. Okay, but one of the things that you can do for those of you that are empathic and striving to get back and connect with people, as in get into the physical world again. Okay, and I covered this earlier in the stream. Surround yourself with a bubble of white light in your mind's eye. Call it your imagination if you will. Okay. Surround yourself in a bubble of white light. Surround that bubble with mirrors facing away from you. Okay, now the white light will protect you from the negative ambient energy that is just there from day-to-day life from people going through stresses. The mirrors will reflect back any energy, any negative energy that is directed at you that is deliberately being broadcast. I forgot one other little detail I neglected to mention. Okay, run real thick, healthy roots right from the soles of your feet straight to the core of the earth. This will bleed off the negative energy you personally create. Things like self-doubt, self-recrimination, self-reprisal. Okay, you get the idea. Okay, even self-defeat will work. You know, just looking at this, JCL goes, last month, my friend's cat, who never comes out to visit with anyone, came out and eventually let me scratch his ear. Okay, it's things like that. You know, it's things like that that can really tell you that you're making headway. You know, that you are connecting with these different energy patterns, with these different feelings. So well done on that, JCL. Just looking at this. Yeah, you know, and the thing is, I will warn you, and this is to those of you that suffer something rather annoying. You know, we are taught, you know, they've made such a big marketing deal of it that drinking helps you cope. It doesn't. Alcohol literally knocks out trained and learned inhibitors, meaning it knocks out your coping mechanisms. That's the first thing that goes out the window. So when you're looking at a way to cope with being overstressed, the best ways, and this is directly, if you're empathic, even mildly, okay, even mildly empathic, what you do is if you're feeling a little overwhelmed or, you know, really, you know, fighting depression, that sort of thing, grab the music. Get the fastest dance-paced music you can find. Crank it as high as socially acceptable and let it run. This will bring your energy levels up. See, and that's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, and Joe, you know, taking the high stress adrenal, okay, when you require them, is not a bad thing, and don't ever let somebody tell you that it is. Well, I shouldn't say ever. Okay, for those of you that are not suffering from the same thing, be sure, and I know you've done this, Joe, but be sure if you're taking medication on a as needed basis, be certain to double check with people that know what that medication is, because sometimes your body will not respond to it properly. Anytime you're using any sort of medication, getting somebody that has been trained in it makes a very wise choice, if you will. The neat part about it is, like, I will use medication if I require it. Sometime this week, I'm going to be online to drop an interesting problem into the lap of people. Okay, I've got an issue I've got to deal with as well. But where comes the empathy? Mr. L, that's an excellent question. Mr. L is just asking Joe, who is the one that pointed out the adrenal problem. He goes, do those affect your heart rhythm? Okay. Now, empaths have the ability to modify what you're feeling, modify what you're going through. Okay. My father was great. He would actually control his blood pressure while he was hooked up to the blood pressure machine. Okay. And you'd watch the blood pressure drop, which was really kind of comical. He doesn't do that anymore, but then Dad passed away in 2016. So I guess we can forgive him for not actually working on his blood pressure anymore. But where it comes to empathy itself, you're born with. Okay. Every single individual I've ever run into that is born, animals, plants, people, insects, the elementals, all of them, okay, they are all born with empathy. Even Esau herself, Mother Nature, Gaia, Earth, whatever you want to call her, okay, even she is empathic. She feels what's going on. Okay, problem is that she still has to take care of her first. Okay, and that can cause a problem. And that being said, it is very wise to remember one little detail. No matter who you are, no matter who you're dealing with, and this is really important for those of you who are empathic, okay, be sure you are taking care of yourself first. Okay, the reality is, if you don't take care of yourself first, you're going to be very hard pressed to take care of other people. This is why sometimes as empaths, we have to push everybody away and go, I just need a break. Well, the good news there, Joe, is if you think you're losing your mind, according to every psychologist and psychiatrist, professional, even all the way down to student, okay, every one of them has said the same thing. If you're questioning if you're losing your mind, you're not. Yeah, at least you're just going, animals and babies are very in tune with energy, as my cat sees the orbs I've taken pics of. So I look at it as a compliment. Animals, babies gravitate towards me and steer clear of people they don't want to be around. And this is very much the case. We went when I was still with my wife, we went out to see about adopting a problem dog, or more to the point, a rescue dog. Okay. And when we got there, for whatever reason, because the guy put an ad out, he goes, free dog to a good home, but I get to meet the owner. When we got there, for whatever reason, my wife left the back door to the car open. So we went to talk to the guy, and the door to the car is open. Well, all of a sudden, this dog races past the guy and dives into the back of the car. And the guy just stood there and looked at me, and he goes, I'm guessing that makes you a good person. Did you want the rest of the stuff with him? Right. because the dog we had been badly abused, and all of a sudden he dove into the car. My ex-wife she still ends up collecting cats like many people used to collect hockey cards, which is really dangerous when you think she's also a hockey fan. But empaths have an interesting interaction. Okay. Where are we? Yep. See, when I was drinking, Alicia, I never drank. People say I drank my fair share. I drank way more than my fair share. I mean, if it was a drink and it was available to me, I was drinking it. I say I went through a 26er, but that's only the stuff I bought. Okay. And that's not counting the amount I got handed for free. But yeah, alcohol itself is notoriously misrepresented. Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend testing that method either. Yeah, Mr. L just going, I've had attack dogs walk right up to me, tame as ever, but I wouldn't test that method. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it either. A buddy of mine used to have, there was one bear in particular. He used to know it for 15 years. It would come out of nowhere to come up and cuddle with him out in the middle of the wild. Okay. Hey, Carlito, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Knew you'd make it in here sooner or later. But yeah, when you look at empathy, it can affect, and I will tell you this is going to sound weird, but empathy can affect and does affect people's reaction to you, animals' reactions to you, plants' reactions, and the very weather itself will be affected by the way you're feeling. Okay. It's absolutely bizarre on occasion. One of the nice parts about it, let's see. Yeah. And the thing with, and this is why I say the music works like a charm there, Alicia. Okay. Most stand-up comedy, I don't, my son looks at me and he goes, because I'll be sitting there deadpan, and my son will look at me and go, Dad, that was intended to be funny. The nice part about it, I used to have a bumper sticker, that used to say, the bumper sticker said, the more people I meet, the more I like my cats. I don't have pets now, but then my apartment doesn't allow them, and frankly, way too much on the go to deal with. On the other hand, I've got a bevy of quail that live just outside my window, and a squirrel that comes by every fall. He'll come by to show me what he's doing in the way of the seeds he's taking home. I kid you not. I live back from the bush a little, and I kid you not, this little brown squirrel, well, little, will run over. He'll bring with him a nut, and he'll stand up. If I'm standing in the office, he'll run over, look in. If I'm in the office, he'll stop and stand up, and he'll hold his little nut up for me. And I'll nod, and he will wait until I nod to him and say congratulations. Absolutely, absolutely, Ozzy. Glad you could join us. After I get done this, I've got to go and deal with supper myself because, well, we're 6 o'clock here. So it's got to be a late supper for you. But no, I've got the squirrel that comes here. We've got a raccoon that comes around once in a while. Almost every animal that comes by here will stop at my window to say hi. Okay. I don't let them in. Sorry, guys. They're live animals, and I've had to tell them, you're not coming in. I'm not picking you up to hug you. But I was really fortunate one day, a couple of years back. There was a mother and father quail. Their kids had all dropped off the lawn onto the ground. Okay, There were a dozen of them in all. So, I managed to get them all lifted back up. On one of them I had to do by hand. By lifting them all back up, all 12 of them survived. And since then, this whole family has just congregated outside my window. Oh, Joe's going, as far as protecting yourself, Keith, what do you recommend for a pocket knife? Benny, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Myself, personally, it's got nothing to do with protecting yourself, because the second you've got a weapon in your hand, in the wrong company, it can be taken away from you. However, where it comes to a pocket knife, I personally like the concept of the Swiss Army knife. Okay, because it's way more useful than just self-defense. And besides that, if you have to use it, all you do is close the thing in your hand and you've got a solid hand. You got to remember, I personally am a pacifist. The reality, like pocket knives, I play with knives, but I do not see them as a protective thing. Okay. But like I said, if I had to choose one, I'd go after a Swiss Army knife, a real one, because the knockoffs are usually really cumbersome and not that functional. Okay, but that'd be, from a recommendation standpoint, that'd be my point. That'd be my choice. I had a young lass one day, and I'm hoping I can find it as I go through my stuff. Had a little 13-year-old that used to come and talk to me. And it was amazing that she would talk to me, because her father did to her multiple times what nobody should do to any woman. Okay. Let me take a look at something here before we run out of time entirely. What we got here? Mr. L's going, I've been wondering about those lately. Orbs, but I don't see them yet. Let me deal with something here. We are on the 10th here. There we go. Mr. L. This is literally, Duran, this is for everybody, but specifically for you, Mr. L. On Friday the 14th, assuming everything goes well, we will be discussing orbs, the various forms and various ways of getting a look at them, what they are, who they are, whether they're constructs, drones, or what have you, and how to separate them, how to tell the difference. But before I go any further on that, tomorrow we are going to be discussing, and again, this is assuming everything goes well, otherwise I'll have to shift things a little. But tomorrow we are going to be discussing life in Atlantis. What life was like, where did Atlantis end up, and what are the ramifications of Atlantis itself. Then on Wednesday, on the 12th, we're looking at discussing what a walk-in is. Okay, and I don't mean somebody walking through that door. Okay, I'm referring to the things we call spiritual walk-ins. Okay, which may be qualified, some people will look at as a Klingon or as an attachment. And walk-ins are a very different thing. Then on the 14th, which is this coming Friday, we're going to look into the orb factor. Alicia. Okay, Alicia's just asked, do you think people in tune with their empathy make better healers? Yeah, she goes, I've severely neglected my own self-care most of my life, and I'm trying to correct my health now so I can help others better. The answer to your question, the Reader's Digest answer, is yes. an empath that is truly in tune with their own abilities can affect healing a lot faster than people that are trained. Now, this does not mean that people trained in the medical facility, in the medical industry, should be shunned or should be looked down upon. Okay, I mean, yes, some of their teachings are, shall we say, a bit archaic, but yes, somebody that can feel what other people feel, make phenomenal healers, and make some of the best counselors if they are in tune and thereby not governed by what they're picking up. Okay. Whatever you do, don't make the mistake, and this is really for you, Alicia. Whatever you do, don't make the mistake of going, the fact I neglected it has permanently disabled me. Okay. I used to absorb people's illness so that I could heal, so that they could heal. Okay. And yeah, I've done a staggering amount of damage. Okay. Some of which I'm now facing the side effects of. Okay. And what time are we at here? Oh, we're not doing bad here at all. I was thinking about putting this out there later. I'm faced with an interesting mess on my hands. Okay. And of course, unfortunately, my own dislike of the modern medical facilities has created a problem. Okay, because I'm supposed to go in on the 23rd, I think, of this month to get all of my teeth replaced and changed over with implants. Only I've had no consultation from any doctor. Okay, they were supposed to wait until I got a hold of mine before booking it. I know that my teeth are in a mess. And yes, I've been working at healing them. On the plus side, my heart's running perfectly fine. My eyes are doing not half bad. And my leg, now that I've dropped the weight drop, has gone really well. But I'm trying to figure out, and it really is my own fears because I've got nothing to work with, about whether or not going in, because they'll be doing it in the hospital. Now we must remember, I suffer from PTSD triggered by the hospital and by the dentist. Okay, you can picture how much fun this is creating. The one thing, so, any input I'm quite open to. I'm still trying to debate that side of it. Yeah, isn't it a wonderful thing when you help other people? Isn't it a wonderful thing, the feedback that you get? And I don't mean them turning to you and saying thank you so much, but I mean the energetic feedback. Okay. And for those of us that are empathic, it really does have a feed that is really bizarre. In a positive way, mind you. One of the things that I look at is this, and I'm seeing this more and more. I'm getting more people reaching out now. Just a caution. Okay. Like I've told people, if you want to get in touch with me, absolutely do so. I will do my best. Okay. The problem is I get so many scam artists phoning on my phone that if something comes up unknown, it's a good bet that I'm not answering it. Okay, in spite of what I'm aiming for. But this said, if you are trying to reach me, do yourself a favor. Okay, or do me a favor, call it what you will. If you phone and I don't answer, text the same number. Okay, because I always get my text messages, and let me know who it was, and I will make certain that I do my best to pick it up the next time. Once in a while, like I did one just yesterday, somebody phoned, and I did end up picking it up. Okay, worked out really well in my eyes. But one of the things that draws empaths together is helping other people. Okay, this is one of the common denominators in virtually every empath I've run into. Oh, I don't think, Nathan, how you doing? Glad you could join us. I'm presuming you're still working your tail feathers to the bone. Where is... Here we are. That Shadow. And Nathan, where are you? There you are. This is the link to Nathan's channel. To Nathan's YouTube channel. And it can be a lot of fun. He comes up with some really, really bizarre topics on occasion. But there you have it. Drop in and give him a lift and give him a listen. Where are we? Minimize that. It's not like there's a formula there, Joe. Okay. I know how I started with me, but as near as I've been able to figure, most of the time, it really depends on who the alien is and what the alien is and what they are looking for. But I will tell you, and you've got this one down to a fine art. Okay. Two big factors. One is the more open-minded you are, the more likely most of them are to pick you up, because the reality is that they do not, on the whole, off-worlders do not desire to disrupt somebody's life and make it absolute chaos. There have been cases where their life got turned completely upside down. Gordana, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Okay, my life being one of them. My life got turned completely upside down the day I was born. Okay. And the funny part about it was the day I was born, I ran into the Council of 12. Within the next year, I was taken my first time. Okay. And then at 5 years old, I was actually rescued by them. Don't get me wrong, it was not kidnapped and gone for 5 years. But ultimately, where it comes to being abducted, this is something that there are so many possibilities for, because it depends on what the race is studying. Okay, what blood type they're studying. Yeah. Mr. L goes, if I see a car broke down, usually I'll stop and fix the car for them. They say, who are you? I say, don't ask. I used to do the same thing. I'd answer, and people would have a question, I'd give them an answer, and they go, well, where did you find that out? And my usual comment was always, I have my ways. The fact I was fully empathic and telepathic, amongst other odds and ends. Okay, like I said earlier, people are born with basically 5 stable senses and a rudimentary 6th. In my case, I was born with 15 stable. I think it's 15. Okay. I wish I could say the same about Pop. But you're absolutely right, Alicia. The more in tune you are with yourself, the more your body is running properly, the less interested in toxins or in the enhancement drugs. And yes, caffeine is an enhancement drug, but it tastes so much better than chlorine. Okay. Oh, in all fairness, Mr. L, I know you were dead serious. And I absolutely agree with you. Oftentimes, just keeping yourself anonymous is a much more rewarding way of helping people. Okay. I mean, I would help people if they had a broken down car, but I figure the car's already in bad enough shape. My helping them is probably not a good thing. Okay. But I will absolutely help people where I can. As you guys well know, when you're drawn to this kind of work, I didn't actually choose the work I'm doing. I was sort of cast into it. But when you're looking at empathy itself, one of the big things that you always look at is if somebody is in pain, if there is some way that you can help it, that you can help them cure that, okay, or deal with it. Quite frankly, I don't know about you, but when I help somebody, the relief they feel it makes me feel a heck of a sight better. Okay, and I'm absolutely certain that seeing somebody stranded on the side of the road, okay, is an absolutely, helping them is a phenomenal, and I'm going to use the term high. It's an emotional high that is just, you cannot match it with actual drugs. At least not from anything I've ever seen. I remember one young lass I did help. She was a heavy alcoholic and severe drug addict. The day we got her out of the bar, the feeling I got was absolutely phenomenal. And that's just the reality behind it. Yeah, that's just, and this, in all fairness, Nathan, this comes across really clear when you're talking on your show. There is very little that you do that clearly, that doesn't absolutely clearly come from the heart. One of the biggest challenges that people have, and that I have explained to people, is why would you help a total stranger? And my concept is real simple. Why wouldn't you help a total stranger? Realistically, yes, I know a lot of people by face, but realistically, on this planet, there are in excess of 8 billion people. There's a whole heck of a pile more total strangers that require help than friends that do. Okay, in my case, it's a bit of an extreme case, because I've only got a handful of people I actually talk to. But when you've got the ability to help a stranger for no other reason than to help them. The one thing, and I got a kick out of a movie. There was a movie years ago that was actually put out, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. I help people out, and periodically I'll get asked, well, what do I owe you for this? Or how do I repay you? How can I ever repay you? I'll look at them and go, tell you what, you want to repay me. You see somebody in trouble, give them a hand. Okay. The movie that I was referring to is one that came out that was called Pay It Forward. Yeah, there really is a mystery. I was just saying you can't match the feeling when you fix something or someone for someone and you don't know how you did it. It's a remarkable boost. Because you sit there going, I did that? Okay. This, I think, is one of the reasons why I came up with the answer that, when people ask me, how did you do that? Before I started understanding what I was doing, it was a question of, well, I have my ways. In other words, I don't, oh Lord, that is so true there, Nathan. In many ways, I don't explain it because I go that route because I really don't have a quantifiable way of saying, this is the mechanics. Nathan just made this comment. So many people don't understand selflessness. No, what people have been taught over the last several years has been getting worse. Is self gratification, self gratification, self attainment, immediate gratification. They are not taught the idea of sharing, of just doing something simple as, you approach a door, there's somebody behind you. Open the door for them. Doesn't matter if they're male, female, or, well, I wouldn't recommend opening it for the dogs. Okay, usually dogs aren't supposed to be inside. And if you see a plant walking down the hall, absolutely say hi. And then ask where the heck it came from. The reality of life is this. Okay, every single person out there is born fully empathic, but we are taught to ignore it. Adults teach kids greed, prejudice, abject fear, paranoia. These are not things that kids are born with. These are things that adults have been taught since they were children to pass on. Nathan's just saying, what can you do for me, and what can you keep doing for me? Yeah, unfortunately it really is. But to me, I look at it when people say, well, this is what I can do for you, this is what I'm doing, or what are you going to do? I'm like, why are you asking me that? I offered to help you just because you required it. Okay. And the thing is, I don't separate people. Okay. People are people. Individuals are individuals, yes. Okay. But empathy is one of these tools. If you stay focused on producing positive emanations towards other people, you'll find your life goes a whole lot more smoothly. Yeah. And I mean, that begs the question of what they were running from. I'm just looking at this. Alicia just said, I wish everyone had to learn about this stuff in school, because beliefs and values are what form the base of society, and the reason why I never want to leave my home until I'm in the woods. I don't blame you there at all. People are taught that if you don't have something, that's what you gotta go after. Go after the physical thing. Yet if you watch the few documentaries that are out there about the so-called third world countries, and you see these kids with nothing to speak of, okay, as long as they're not on the verge of starvation, these are some of the happiest people you ever run into. Okay, material stuff is not what makes this world a better place. And rest assured, the Egyptians sort of found out you can't take the material stuff with you. Now, with this in mind, guys, we are hitting the 2-hour mark. And due to the fact that I really do have to look at the idea of eating at some point, okay, again, I really want to say thank you so much for sharing your time with me today. I really do appreciate it. Tomorrow we are going to deal head on with Atlantis. Okay. On the 12th, on Wednesday, we'll be looking into the actual walk-ins, which is a neat little spiritual endeavor between souls. Okay. And we are going to, on Friday, because Thursday I won't be here at all. On Friday, we are going to look into orbs. Okay. But I'm going to bring this to a close because I got to do something about getting supper on the table. We're 6:30 Pacific right now. Okay, not a problem there at all, JCL. I really do appreciate you guys. Absolutely, if you haven't done so already, do give us a thumbs up on the stream if you like it. Subscribe to the channel and share the daylights out of it. And until we meet again, which should be in the very near future, do take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.